Hi, and welcome to Midwest Running. Today we're going to talk about a shoe that's relatively new to the market. It's been getting some buzz lately, but I want to give my thoughts now after I've had some time to put some mileage in, kind of see how they go, and maybe hopefully help guide you into what could be the next shoe you love. So a little bit of a disclaimer beforehand. So any shoe I review, I purchased with my own money. I did not receive any backing from any company, nor am I letting anyone see this footage. Really, this is all just my own opinion here. So today, let's get started about talking about the Brooks Hyperion Max 3. So this is the shoe we're going to be talking about today. Just to kind of give you an idea here. So this is a shoe that I purchased from my local running store, my size, US men's size 11. And the cost on this is about $200, which is an increase. So I do have the Hyperion Max 2 right here for comparison. And we'll kind of talk about this a little bit too, just on the side, but I want to kind of go over in general kind of the Max 3, then we'll chat a little bit about the previous shoe as well. So the Max 3, as I said, it was for me, my US men's size 11. It comes in at 11.35 ounces, which is 321.8 grams. That is with a 46 millimeter heel and a 6 millimeter job, putting us at 40 millimeters in the front. It is a dual foam here, so you have on this top layer, this section here, and it kind of wraps all the way around here, is the DNA Gold. And this is the newest foam that Brooks has put out. It is a PIBA-based foam. And on the bottom here, you have the DNA Flash V2, which is a nitrogen-infused supercritical EVA. Then kind of between all of that, you do have a nylon plastic, some kind of, I believe it's not like a nylon plastic, plate called the Speed Vault. The idea of that is to probably give a little bit more stability just across the board and kind of keep everything together. It is not a very propulsive plate, more so as a stabilizing function to the shoe. Again, all these together come in about $200, which when I compare it to the outgoing model, the Max 2 here, so the Hyperion Max 2 came out last year. This is a lighter shoe, actually. It's 287.5 grams or 10.14 ounces. So the new one here, the Max 3, that is actually at 1.2 ounces heavier in my men's size 11. That is 34 grams for those outside the US here. But the biggest difference here is this shoe is only a 36 millimeter heel versus the 46 millimeters here. So you're getting the additional, like an entire additional centimeter, like 10 millimeters of additional foam in the heel. And this one came in when it was new at $180. So $20 price increase and a 10 millimeter increase in the heel. The addition of a PIBA foam as opposed to just being a supercritical nitrogen infused EVA. And really just kind of going off that, I think, it's good to talk about what these two shoes are good for. And I really think that the Hyperion Max 2 was the first of the Hyperion Max series I ever tried. That was a shoe that I think was very firm. It really fell more into kind of like a tempo day shoe. I didn't really feel like the word max was appropriately applied to it. I feel that it was, when I saw Max, I was thinking, hey, this is going to be kind of a softer shoe, especially when I saw, 36 millimeters. It's not the tallest shoe by any means on the market, but, it's a pretty good stack height in the heel. I thought it was going to be a little bit more like bouncy and soft. When instead you end up with a very firm shoe underfoot, which wasn't a bad thing, actually. I felt that it was very comfortable, especially for kind of tempo runs, really just kind of putting in some efforts like in like a fartlek, track workouts even. I've had a lot of fun putting mileage into the Hyperion Max 2. But where I think it was kind of letting me down was, I really thought, initially that this would be a good shoe that, maybe great for like long runs, maybe some long runs with some tempo. And I think you could do that. But after a while, I felt it would kind of beat up the legs a little bit or beat up the feet a little bit. One area where I felt it was very comfortable was that it had probably the best upper I've ever seen in a shoe, to be quite honest. This upper on the Hyperion Max 2 was just spot on. I mean, 100% one of the most comfortable shoes I've ever put on. Had a really good gusset in the tongue here. The material, this kind of knit material that they used, was not too baggy. It was not too tight. It just really kind of formed to the foot very nicely. Had a really just very comfortable, almost like second skin kind of feel almost to it, which really I think added to some of the stability aspect of it and made it just an absolute great shoe for kind of when you really needed to pick things up. So moving into the Max 3, the Max 3 here, I think gains a lot, but it does, I think, lose a little bit too. So one of the biggest things it gains, as we mentioned, and I can't understate this, is this top layer, and the majority of the foam that you're really feeling underfoot is the DNA Gold, which that is the PIBA foam. That's what's in the Hyperion Elite 5, which I'll have a review coming up on as well. And that is a very nice, very responsive, soft, very classic PIBA foam. I feel that that gives you a very good amount of rebound. It lets you really kind of feel like push the shoe a little bit further. And then having similarly a nylon plate similar to the Max 2, and then having that DNA Flash V2, that supercritical EVA, kind of a big block of it kind of in the heel and a much smaller amount here, kind of adds a little bit more stability to it, gives it a little bit more reliability, durability, as well as it kind of just a good amount of like shock absorption. If you ever run in a good nitrogen, like supercritical foam, you'll know what I mean when I say that. It's just very, it's not dull by any means. It has a very nice feel to it, but it just really takes a lot of the kind of that impact absorption out of it and doesn't really transfer to your leg. So very comfortable over the long run. The upper on the shoe is a change from V2. Now, it's not a bad upper by any means. I think again, it's very comfortable. It keeps a lot of similar kind of feel to it. It is kind of this lighter knit kind of upper, like more, but with more of a mesh to it. As you can see, there's a lot more breathability, especially in the toe box when you compare it to the Max 2. You can just see kind of across it, just a lot more openness to it. You can kind of see through it a little bit better. In general, you get a little bit more of a breathable shoe. Where it kind of lets me down, one is the tongue itself, I think has this really thick, like padded area right down the middle, which I think kind of lets it down a little bit. I don't think it needed anywhere near that much padding. It has a very comfortable, soft lacing to it, which would have been fine. I don't think there's that much lace bite that would have been possible off of that. So I think that that's an area that could have been ventilated a little bit better. And then it also has this kind of lip thing that pops up here that kind of goes up along the ankle, kind of that front of your ankle a little bit. I haven't felt it to be irritating or anything like that. But then again, I do typically wear a little bit of a taller sock. Potentially if you're somebody who likes to run without socks or with like a no-show or a low like volume, low profile sock, you might notice a little bit of irritation with it. Moving away to the outsole here, very good rubber coverage. I feel like you have a lot of decently grippy rubber all the way throughout the forefoot. You have this cutout that comes in through here, which helps save weight, but also, and I'll get into this a little bit later, I think helps with the ride profile a lot. And then you have some good heel patches of rubber here, which are holding up quite well so far. If you want to compare that, the version 2 had more rubber, I think, just in general, like more rubber coverage in the anterior, in the forefoot, excuse me, and then in the heel, same kind of rubber coverage here as well. All things equal, when you kind of put the two next to each other, you can see similar rubber coverage overall, just less on the V3. And then adding this cutout here, I think, changes a little bit of the ride. So what do I feel about this one? So where I said the version 2 was very much a kind of a tempo shoe, very firm feel underfoot. Immediately putting this on, you notice how soft it is. That DNA Gold, that PIBA, is a lot softer than the Flash V2. It's not a, it's not a bad feeling underfoot, I think. Now it does, I think, change what the shoe feels like, and I think in a way changes what the shoe will be best used for. But I think it also gives it a bit more of an identity. I felt like the Max 2 didn't have much of an identity outside of the Hyperion, the standard Hyperion model. This one, I think, really has finally found what it's for. And to me, this is a great shoe for logging long miles, or putting in, if you're going to do like your long run with some marathon pace work, even some half marathon pace work. This is a great shoe for that. I feel it's actually a little bit more stable feeling underfoot, despite being an entire centimeter taller in the heel. And I think the reason for that improvement in underfoot feel, or that stability, is actually because of the combination of the PIBA foam here and then having this cutout. This cutout here is only in the supercritical EVA, the Flash V2, whereas the PIBA is all the way through with the plate there. And so what I get underfoot is, when I am kind of transitioning through, I'm a bit more of a midfoot striker, kind of, I would say kind of back of the midfoot. I wouldn't necessarily say, I'm not truly like a heel striker, but when I get a little bit more tired, I definitely do start to kind of tend that way, but I do generally land kind of in this midfoot area, a little bit further back maybe. When I'm really pushing, I'll definitely go a little bit further forward though. And what I feel is, when I am landing, especially into that midfoot, or if I'm getting tired and kind of getting that heel, I feel like where that cutout is really giving me a little bit of that extra guidance. It's really just helping that shoe move forward a bit, without getting kind of caught up on itself, and giving it a very decent natural feeling underfoot. I feel that it allows it to move and expand and let the foam do its thing without really overly controlling it. The rocker on it is pretty aggressive, if I'm being honest here. I mean, that rocker is going to move you forward pretty quickly, and that's actually, I think, another area where this shoe excels, is when you are really trying to run in it. It wants you to kind of go a little bit faster, even when you're kind of just trying to hold back and stay at an easier pace. I think it comfortably does that, but it keeps your legs moving forward, and really just doesn't let you forget that, hey, this is a shoe that has a lot of kind of race day pedigree to it, if it not being a true race day shoe. A couple things that I really have enjoyed in it is when I have run a little bit easier in it, to be quite honest. A lot of my runs in it have been kind of moderate length. I've done a couple longer runs in it. I think the longest one I did was 10 or 11, but I've done like easily 7-8 miles in it without any issues, and just felt really, really comfortable. Some areas where I think it could improve though, I think the upper on this is in some ways a very small step back from the version 2. If I'm being honest, I would love to just I would love to remove the upper of this and put the upper of version 2 on here, just to see how it would feel. I think that upper combined with this shoe would make this an extraordinarily comfortable place to be. That being said, the breathability improvement is very noticeable, especially if you're anywhere in the northern hemisphere right now. I think it's been so hot and so humid. I'm appreciating the amount of ventilation that this shoe does have when I am out there, especially with the amount of humidity we're getting here in this area. When I compare just the overall feeling between the two shoes, really, you can't. I like both shoes, and in fact, I think both shoes are going to remain in my rotation. In fact, and I may even keep using them kind of alternating in a way for more of my workout days, going with the Max 2 And then some of my longer runs, even some of my easier runs, maybe putting into the Max 3. I think that is a good place. In between those two, I think you actually have a really good training rotation. And then if you put in the Elite 5, the Hyperion Elite 5, that actually would be a really good 3-shoe training rotation, racing rotation. But we'll talk about the Elite 5 in a different video. To wrap things up, again, this is the Hyperion Max 3 from Brooks. I picked it up from my local store. It was $200. Pretty significant change from the previous model. I think most of the changes have been for the better. The upper could use a tiny little bit of reworking, mostly just that padding in the tongue area I think is just a little bit too excessive. If I were to give it an overall rating, looking at a score of 10, I'd probably put this at about a 7.5 or so. So the areas where I would say that it does lose is, one, it is still a bit on the heavier side at 11.3 ounces. I think there could be some areas to lose weight. I think some of that primarily comes in this upper. Ditch some of that extra padding there, maybe a little bit of the extra padding in the heel. It's got a pretty firm heel counter as well and pretty rigid throughout, as you can see. I think those are a couple areas where we can see some improvement. Another area where I think it could be improved just in general is I feel that it has very, very little flex, which at the end of the day I think does limit its ability in some ways of really kind of giving you that one shoe that you really want to be using all the time. I wouldn't necessarily be using this as my end-all be-all shoe. I do like shoes that have a lot more flex in it, mostly to kind of help build some of those foot muscles, ankle stabilization, all of those other kinds of things that really help you become a just better, more resilient runner, we'll say. And then really the last thing I would say is, while it is definitely more breathable, it's still not the most breathable shoe on the market by any means. I think just this upper, especially when you get kind of this midfoot and the lacing areas here, I think it does kind of hold back a little bit and retains a little bit of heat. But all things considered, it fits true to size in my US men's size 11. It's a great shoe. I would have no problems recommending it to most people, especially training kind of in that half marathon to marathon distance. I wouldn't necessarily give it to a new runner. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for somebody who isn't really putting in a lot of mileage. I think that would be unnecessary. There's a lot better shoes on the market at better prices to handle that. But again, all things considered, this is definitely a shoe worth checking out. I encourage you to check it out. If you have a local running store that carries Brooks, hopefully they have one of these in, so you can try it on at least. And from there, kind of take it and see what you think. If they have the Max 2 also in stock, try that one on next to it if you haven't tried it before. And you can see kind of the evolution that Brooks is going for, I think, between the two shoes, and really seeing what was, unfortunately, I think what let the Max 2 down is that it was not very well differentiated from the rest of the Hyperion series, which was kind of that little bit firmer, more tempo-oriented shoe. But this one here really kind of finds its niche. It's a bit more of a long-run shoe. Put some work into it. You can definitely push it. I've done some good strides in it. Just enjoy your long runs with it. From there, really, I'm just going to say, stay safe with your runs, hydrate, pre-hydrate, get your electrolytes, get your food, get your fuel, just have everything ready to go, because as hot as it's been, I don't want you getting injured out there. Listen to your body. Do not push yourself too hard. Don't push yourself to the point where you're getting dizzy, losing, vision, any of those other kinds of things, which I've seen. So take it easy, enjoy your runs, and we'll see you the next time.